Monday, June the 24th, and we are live here on WagerTalk TV breaking down the MLB card for tonight, and we're taking your questions as always in the live chat. I am Steve Merrill, filling in for Dan Alexander. He has a food hangover from this weekend, but he will be back tomorrow on Tuesday to host as always. And once again, we are live on YouTube TV, WagerTalk TV on YouTube, YouTube Shorts. And if you want to get the week started off right or continue the weekend more likely, then Instagram day drinking is permitted. We take your questions in the live chat here at 2 o'clock Eastern, and soon to be 11 a.m. Eastern, not Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern later this week or perhaps next. So be sure to click subscribe and hit the bell for an instant alert so you know when this show goes live earlier in the day in the near future. All right, let's bring on our two guests for today. We're going to start off with Drew Martin, then we have Adam Trigger as well. And Drew Martin, not going to talk your Miami Marlins, although you're sure. Looks like you want me to talk your Miami Marlins with that hat. I believe that's a Miami hat. You got the blue on. We're going to talk about a team that wears blue that's a little bit better. You know, Drew, last night I saw the top 5 starting ERAs in baseball. I saw this stat on MLB Network, and it's Yankees, Orioles, Phillies, Dodgers, right? No surprise. But the other team in the top 5 starting ERA is the Mariners. And I do feel like they're flying a little bit under the radar this season. What are you doing with this game tonight? Seattle against Tampa, not your Tampa Bay Rays.
No, definitely not my Tampa Bay Rays. And actually, guys, if you're not from Florida, there is a little bit of a rivalry between Tampa and Miami. At points, we don't always like each other. But either way here, Steve, you bring up the Mariners and their starting rotation. Well, big reason why. Brian Wu on the hill here. The team's 6-1 when he takes the bump. He's got a sub-1.7 ERA on the season. Great strikeout to walk ratio. It hasn't pitched all that much because he started the season late. But he's only given up 20 hits this season. I mean, this kid's been impressive. When you watch him pitch, he's tough to hit. It shows in the numbers. I like the M's here, Steve. I really do. I mean, they were just playing, actually, my Miami Marlins. So they got a short trip on the Tamiami Trail from Miami to Tampa to play the next night. And schedule spot-wise, it's the Rays here, Steve. First game home off of a 3-city road trip. I don't like that spot, betting on teams that just come back home. Overall, this just missed my client card because I do think Taj Bradley, the starter here for the Rays, could have a decent start himself. At times, the Mariners' bats have been quieted. So we'll see if that's the case tonight. But near pick'em price here, actually some books were showing earlier in the day with the M's as a slight underdog. I think the slight underdog in the Mariners is worth a play here. So, yeah, in Tropicana, I like the M's tonight, Steve.
That's Drew Martin taking the Seattle Mariners, one of the more underrated teams this year in baseball, against the Rays, one of the more overrated teams. And, Drew, everything was great there, but as Mark Zeno will tell you, you mispronounced the starting pitcher. It's pronounced woo! So I had to do that. My inner Mark Zeno was channeling me there right there, and that's a contractual obligation when he's on this show. And I believe he'll be on tomorrow on Tuesday. In fact, I will check the schedule right now and let you know for sure, because I will be on tomorrow, and it's Brian Leonard tomorrow. Brian Leonard. Mark will be on Wednesday with Brian Power. So once again, Steve Merrill, Brian Leonard Tuesday, Mark Zeno, Brian Power on Wednesday here on First Pitch. Click subscribe and click the bell for instant alerts. Adam Trigger joining us today as well here. And Adam, for your big game breakdown, we're going to go here into the American League, National League, Interleague. And how appropriate is this? Drew Martin's Miami Marlins against the Kansas City Royals for your big game breakdown. What are your thoughts on this one, Adam?
Yeah, I'll take care of the other, Florida team here. And even Drew probably agrees with me on this. I don't think he thinks his Marlins are that great this year. But I want to start and talk about the Royals because we did First Pitch last Thursday. I kind of hinted at, wanting to buy the Royals at some point. I gave them out as a bet on Thursday's show, which was one of their rare wins on the road trip, Steve. They just went, they lost 7 of 9 on their most recent road trip, averaging just 2.3 runs per game. Believe they bring a 22-inning scoreless streak into tonight, and they've now lost 11 of 14. But, they did win that game on Thursday. I said I would prefer to wait until the Royals are back home to jump in, where they're 25-14 this season. So they've been a much better team at Kauffman Stadium. And I think you're going to see some success for the Royals in this series. Now, that's unfortunately the books, the market, all of that's going to be heavily priced in because the Marlins are widely considered one of the worst teams in the league, which they are. But I do see reasons to start buying the Royals. A lot of their issues, have been pretty much everyone going cold at once. Bobby Witt had a terrible series in Texas over the weekend. Salvador Perez is hitting like a $157 this month. Pasquantino's not getting, not doing much at the plate. Those are all things that, I think, especially with Witt, obviously we know he's going to be fine. His ceiling is like AL MVP, so he's going to be fine. Salvador Perez, we've seen rake for years, so he's going to be fine. And I think the Royals collectively, as an offense, will get back to what they were the first couple months of the season, which were right up there in the upper echelon of the American League. Now, the starting pitching has struggled as well. That's a big reason for all the losses. It's when you don't hit and you don't get pitching, probably going to have a stretch where you lose 11 of 14 like the Royals. But Cole Reagans he's not part of those struggles. You look at the Royals pitching numbers in June. Starting pitchers 5.52 ERA, but Reagans has been great. He's got four quality starts, all 4 starts in June for Reagans. Quality starts, which means 6 innings, 3 runs or less. He's really only had 2 bad starts all season. He's made 16 starts to this point, so it's another thing. He's made all of his starts. And if you throw out his 2 blowups, in the other 14, he's got a 1.93 ERA. His 109 strikeouts are 4th in Major League Baseball. I've been saying on this show since the beginning of the season, he's an absolute stud. I want to continue to look to back him. And, this is a spot. Now, I don't like doing this, but this might be a spot where I just lay the 1.5 with the Royals, even though they're at home. When I picked this out for the show, it was like -115. It looks like the market is moving in that way. It looks like -1.5 is -125. But it feels to me like the Royals, when they figure it out, are going to blast the team. Like, they're going to put up 8-9 runs. And if they do it in this game, I don't see Reagans giving up much. Miami has one of the worst offenses in Major League Baseball. They've scored fewer runs in June than any other team. And then you've got Roddery Munoz for the Marlins. I mean, on his best day, he's got Major League stuff and looks like he belongs in the league. But he's so inconsistent. It's the reason why he should probably be at AAA. But the Marlins obviously, don't have a wealth of options. So he's still up here, and they're just kind of hoping that he shows up with his good stuff. In 6 starts at the big league level so far this year, Steve, he's given up 4 multi-home run games and 4 multi-walk games. And as you guys both know, walking hitters and giving up home runs, typically not a recipe for success at the major league level. So I feel like the Royals are going to get right during this series. If it's here, it's probably by a pretty big margin. So we'll say Royals -1.5, lay like -120 or whatever it is. I could see them winning this big.
Yeah, no. In fact, G Hurt is saying he might even take a look at him +2.5 because he said, "Is anyone worse than 2.5 than Kansas City right now?" So you're laying a little extra juice, G Hurt, though, on the 2.5 run line.
I would not want any part of that. Like if you're saying +2.5 with the Marlins, I mean, when the Royals figure it out, they're going to smash someone. So it's like, do you really want to lay juice to get 2.5 runs? And like, if tonight's the night, and if Munoz doesn't have his good stuff, the Marlins will lose this like 9-2. So this wouldn't be the spot where I would, but that's just me personally.
Adam, bigger picture, though, I agree with you. I think in general, I do use run lines, so do you a lot, 1.5s, but I never play the 2.5s because, look, one is a competitive game, right? The floodgates can open once you get beyond that with these teams, especially when you're playing every day, every night, 162 games. Once it gets out of reach, I mean, why would any team, start pushing it? So I don't think the extra juice on 2.5 makes sense. We've talked about this for years with the Dodgers. You either play the Dodgers -1.5 or the other team outright plus money. That continues to work this year, including recent weeks. So once again, I think in general, unless it's a giant favorite, like $3 or $4 favorite, and you're getting the 2.5 at a pick 'em price or low juice, I usually look at the 1.5 run line or the outright money line. Kansas City, though, just 1-6 their last 7, but as Adam said, they're getting a good opponent here to maybe get healthy tonight against the Marlins. Drew's Marlins 4-1 their last 5. All right, any games you all want to talk about in the live chat, please keep them coming. Just to let you know, we will have best bets here at the end of the show. from both Drew and Adam. We're going to look at the Nationals, Padres, also the Cubs, Giants game, so we'll save those until the end. But Drew, I'll throw it back to you. Let's start at the top of the American League card here with Cleveland and Baltimore. Orioles have regressed a little bit here in recent weeks, but I still think the Orioles and Yankees are the teams to beat. But if you look at one of the three most profitable teams in baseball this year, Cleveland Guardians have been up there as well. They've been a great moneymaker, and now they're a slight dog at Baltimore. Drew Martin, what are you doing with this game tonight? It's actually a pretty critical game in the American League, Cleveland at Baltimore.
I actually like Cleveland. And you said, Baltimore not playing their best baseball, actually getting swept here by the Stros over the weekend. So don't look now, guys, but Cleveland actually owns the best winning percentage in the American League. Winning 5 straight here, Steve, 49 wins on the season. Interesting note with the MLB schedule, guys, the Yankees have played 5 more games than the Guardians to date. I just found that something to note here. But Bybee on the hill, I like to call him BB. He's throwing BBs out there, Steve. 5-2. Last time out, 6 innings, 0 earned runs. He had 12 strikeouts. He's got a 23-2 strikeout to walk ratio his last 2 starts. Now, I don't love going up against Baltimore, particularly off of losing, 3 straight games. I don't know if Baltimore's ever lost 4 straight. I mean, ever. It's been years probably since that's happened. So they do have Pavich on the hill, and he had 5 walks last time out. We just heard Trig talk about, walks can come back to kill you. So a pitcher that's been walking a bunch of guys going up against a Guardians lineup that great bat to ball skills. They're deep. They've been good against lefties as well. I actually think Cleveland's the side here, Steve. I mean, we could get them plus price, plus 105 earlier in the day. I kind of like that side. I really do. Don't love going against the Orioles, and the Orioles don't give up a bullpen edge to many teams, but I do think they give up the bullpen edge here. If you go over the last 5 weeks, this is the best bullpen in baseball, talking about the Cleveland side of things. So I think it's a little wrong team favored, and I think Cleveland as a dog. We don't get them much as a dog. It's worth a shot here in Baltimore tonight, Steve.
Yeah, Drew, you're talking about that bullpen. I was actually talking to a Guardians fan yesterday on Sunday afternoon. I was saying their bullpen's been fantastic, and they're a legitimate contender because of that bullpen this year, and did not realize they had the best win percentage in the American League, because you're right, the Yankees have 3 more wins, but as you said, they've played 5 more games. But Adam, how about this? The best run differential in the American League is actually still the Orioles, plus 111, Yankees plus 109, Guardians plus 104. So even with the recent swept, the losses, Baltimore does return home now after a tough 6-game road trip against the Yankees and Astros. But then again, it's back home without rest. So maybe this isn't the ideal setup tonight to get back on track. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I really wanted to make a case for the Orioles here because, of course, they come off the sweep. But that's kind of the conclusion I came to, Steve. It's really not the ideal setup for either. Drew, Bybee's nasty. Like he's someone that I kind of have had after I got away with playing against him with the Reds. I was like, you know what, I'm done trying to play against this guy. Like his stuff is really like he's taken a big step in my opinion. His fastball usage is down. He's just more unhittable. So I don't really want to play against him. However, the Guardians, they're going to be without some bullpen guys, and Povich is really good. Like, this is someone I've talked about in his first couple starts. I liked what I saw about, from him at AAA, and opponent batting average through 3 games for Povich is 190. So the guys that have faced him up here at the big league level have not squared him up. So I guess I don't know if this is conventional wisdom or not. Like, my gut tells me the Orioles probably get right after being swept. The Guardians just came off of a sweep, so it feels like they're due for one. But I'm starting to accept the fact that the Guardians are a really good ball club. And so I decided to pump the brakes and not play against them with the Orioles here, even though that's kind of what I had thought I might do going into today.
Yeah, I mean, once again, bullpens are more important than ever, and they, pitch about half the games now on average, a little less. But, the Guardians' bullpen has been solid all year, and Drew referenced the recent current form is pretty good as well. So hard to play against a really quality team as a dog when a team's been slumping. So it's a critical game, though, in the American League East tonight, or American League East and Central tonight, Guardians, and once upon a time, maybe once again, my Baltimore Orioles. Drew, let's go back to the National League here. Let's look at the Braves and Cardinals. The Braves are an interesting team to talk about. Obviously, just had the big series against the Yankees. They now travel to St. Louis, no rest, slight road favorite. Cardinals offense has been one of the weaker units in baseball this year, a little bit better over the past month. Your boy Lance Lynn, slight home dog here. Any interest in this one, Braves, Cardinals?
Actually, like the favorite. Yeah, I got down on this one, Steve. It's a client play today. The Braves winning 5 of 6, 8 of their last 10. They were slumping, about 2 weeks ago. It was a great buy low opportunity on the Bravos. They're now 11 games back over 500. Schwellenbach on the hill, the rookie out of Nebraska, second rounder, back-to-back 6-inning starts, 3 earned runs combined. That was against the Tigers and the Orioles. So he's kind of riding a hot hand here. You bring up my boy, Lance Lynn. I don't know that he's much my boy. I mean, he looks like one of those guys, drinking a bunch of Bud Heavies, going out there hurling. But he actually gave up 10 hits his last time out and 6 runs. And that was against my Miami Marlins. Man, if you're giving up 10 hits to the Marlins, what are the Braves going to do to you? And actually, Steve, if you go back to last season, he faced this Braves lineup one time and gave up 7 earned runs with only 1 strikeout. Didn't make it out of the 4th inning. So this same lineup has seen him pretty well. I think the Braves is the side here, Steve. Under 20 cents, I think low watermark, looking at the WagerTalk live odds screen, minus 112. I think the Braves are the side here, and they got the bullpen edge as well. So give me the Braves in this one, Steve.
Yeah, guys, I was waiting for Atlanta to turn the corner, and I said, Adam, with Acuna going out a few weeks ago, maybe that would be the catalyst. We've seen the Dodgers offense, of course, they're in thin air and altitude, but the minute Mookie went out, they started smashing the ball at Coors Field last week. It does seem like maybe that was a wake-up call, and this time 3 years ago in 2021, Braves are still below 500 right now, and they lose Acuna for the rest of the season, and they win the World Series. They're actually, as Drew said, they're much ahead of schedule now compared to what they were 3 years ago. Adam, your quick thoughts on this one, if you have anything. Braves and Cardinals, maybe just more big picture on Atlanta as well. They definitely look like a play-on team right now.
Yeah, I agree very much with everything Drew said there. I lean Braves here. Schwellenbach is not someone I was overly familiar with because he skipped AAA. Steve, that's my thing. I watch a lot of AAA baseball, but he flew up there through the Braves organization. He was in A ball to start the year, made 2 starts at AA, right to the big leagues. And you want to talk big picture for a second. The Braves have a ton of pitching throughout their organization. Remember, Bryce Elder was an all-star last year. He can't get into the big leagues. Like, he's stuck on their AAA roster. Like, that's how much pitching is in this organization with, guys like Strider out for the year. And it's like, they have options. Darius Vine still at AAA. Alan Winan still at AAA. Taylor Widener, who is a guy that was starting games in Korea and had some success, he's working out of the bullpen at AAA because there's no room in the AAA starting rotation for him. So what does that tell you about this guy? That the Braves said, you know what? We're going right from AA, right to the bigs with you. Back-to-back quality starts for him. As my computer starts to die here and I plug it in before I get kicked off the show. Back-to-back quality starts for Schwellenbach. AA right to the bigs. It tells you that, they think highly of him in an organization that has a lot of pitching. So I'm not betting against that. It would be Braves or pass.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, you see a guy that doesn't even pitch in AAA, and he said, okay MLB numbers. ERA is not great. Opponent batting average, other stuff's not bad. But, yeah, the fact that they're deep and they still have him there is saying something. And it also makes me wonder, Adam, maybe if come trade deadline guys, if they don't try to pick up a little bit more offense and maybe offload one of those future pitchers, because this is an Atlanta team.
Steve,
don't forget about a month ago went over once in 21 games.
That's a really good point. I don't know if that's actionable info or not, but they don't have much in the way of offense at Gwinnett right now. So chances are, if they're going to improve at all offensively, or if they need to fill a hole offensively, it's trade one of the pitchers because they are loaded with pitching.
Yeah, well, from a betting perspective, it was at one point, right? I wish we had jumped on that a little bit more. They went over once in 21 games during that span back in May. I mean, it was 19-1-1 to the under, and it kept working because, like you said, Atlanta's been a great offensive team in years past, and they've fallen quite a bit this season, and now they've lost one of their sluggers in Acuna for the rest of the season. Adam, I want to throw it back to you. Speaking of no offense, not my Oakland A's, perhaps, we get a Vegas guy. Brian Leonard's on tomorrow. It could be his Las Vegas A's here once via Sacramento in a couple years. But Oakland, actually was competitive the first couple months. We knew they were going to regress. Got shut out yesterday. But we do have somebody in the live chat asking about that game. Roger Long is saying, is Funky Cold Medina a continued fade? What are your thoughts on that game tonight? We've got Medina going for Oakland as only a small dog, actually, against the Angels with Canning.
Yeah, I mean, this was probably the one I passed on the quickest, but to answer the specific question from the chat, without a doubt, I would still fade Medina. His advanced metrics are far worse than the surface numbers. He comes out last start and fires 5 2/3 of 1-run ball against the Royals. I think that has more to do with the Royals being it is cold as Antarctica right now than it does Medina being very good. I thought he would. I think we did a Spaces. I did a Twitter Spaces where we talked about that game, and I talked about liking the Royals in that game. I thought that they would light Medina up, and it was just really bad at bats from the Royals. That if you watched a lot of Royals last week, was part of a bigger problem than just Medina, right? Like the Royals were just ice cold. It never got better. They were frozen all road trip. So I got to look at that and say, I would not want to come back with him here. Do I love the Angels? No. Like this is not a team that I'm really trying to buy on. I will say that Miguel Sano had a great week for AAA Salt Lake last week, was crushing the ball down there on rehab. Would love to I see no reason why they wouldn't just slot him back in that lineup at this point. He looked fine for a full week pretty much for Salt Lake, so I expect him back sooner than later. Might be a boost the way he was hitting the ball at AAA. So I suppose a slight lean to the Angels, but not a team. Canning's not a guy I'm super confident in. Angels not a team I'm overly confident in. But definitely more reason to like the Angels and the A's here for me.
Yeah, it's an ugly game indeed. When Medina and Oakland's only $1.20 dog on the road, that's a pretty bad opponent. Drew, I won't make you chime in on that dog unless you have something, but I do want to ask you about a little bit of a better game also in the interleague card at 8 o'clock Eastern, Texas-Milwaukee. The defending World Series champs, the Rangers, are they going to get right? We checked the standings now. They're 3 games below 500, -2 runs on the season. Milwaukee kind of running away with a very mediocre NL Central, but they're only 5 games up now. They have regressed a bit here in recent weeks, going just 5-5. Any thoughts? If you have a thought on Oakland Angels, throw it in. Otherwise, let's look Texas and Milwaukee. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Steve, I do have some thoughts on the A's and Halos here, and they're mainly I guess I was more like Trig, like a quick pass, but I did want to give a shout out to Roger Long. I mean, Funky Cold Medina, that's probably the comment of the show so far. I like where he's going with that.
Milwaukee Brewers there for anybody under 40 that doesn't remember, right?
No, great comment there, Roger. With the Brewers and Rangers, it's one of those things. I feel like, the defending World Series champion here. Are they going to find it? I don't like that profile of bet, though. Like, man, at some point they're going to turn it around. It's kind of like the catching the falling knife term. I like this Brewers team. I do. I know that they had that losing streak, but they won their last game against the Padres on the road. It's a situation where they're coming back home off of the West Coast road trip. That's what kept me off of it. Plus the fact, you're having to lay 80 cents here with Peralta on the hill. So this is another one that I passed on, but if you needed something, I would be on the Brew Crew, Steve.
Yeah, and Adam, I want to ask you about the Dodgers-White Sox here in a moment, but if you have any thoughts on Rangers-Brewers, let me know, especially just Rangers' big picture, maybe, what we do with the defending World Series champs who are below 500. But after that, definitely want to get your thoughts. Titan CT's liking the Dodgers -1.5 plus money run line. And boy, if you told me we're going to get the Dodgers -125 at the White Sox, your Chicago White Sox, but then again, Crochet is on the mound. So any thoughts on Rangers, Brewers, feel free to chime in, but definitely want to get Dodgers, White Sox as well.
No real opinion, Rangers, Brewers. I noted last week at one point that Peralta's had some inconsistency with his fastball velo. So because of that, certainly not but then again, he was very good. last time out against the Angels. So maybe, he's worked around that, the start before he got blown up. I guess because of that, I wasn't dying to lay minus 175 with the Brewers. Any type of uncertainty sort of scares me off minus 175, but I'm not going to jump in with the Rangers just yet. I've kind of put them to the back burner. They were a team that I talked about, figuring it out at some point, but I don't know that the sweep of the Royals was them being good as much as it was Kansas City being cold. So again, I'll probably wait and see there. As far as the White Sox and the Dodgers are concerned, this is the scenario that's come up the last couple times that Garrett Crochet has taken the mound, and it's you have arguably one of the best pitchers in baseball. That's not arguable. Like, he is one of the best pitchers in baseball. You could say arguably the best, or one of the top few on the mound on one of the worst teams. It makes it almost an impossible handicap, because do you want to bet against Crochet, who is far superior to Paxton right now, in my opinion? But at the same time, you're not taking the White Sox plus 113 against the Dodgers. That seems pretty crazy as well. I'll go back to what I always say with these bad teams. I really don't want to back the bad teams to have to win. If I was getting the 1.5 with the White Sox at home here at a more favorable price, I might consider the White Sox, just because I am still very high on Crochet. But at minus 155, that's out of the picture too. So it makes it almost impossible to handicap this game, because you're either fading a stud pitcher in Crochet, or you're backing one of the worst teams in the league to have to win a game against arguably the best team in the league. I can't really wrap my head around it, so it's a quick pass.
Yeah, I mean, Drew, the first thing you do too is when you have a pitching mismatch like this, but a team mismatch the other way, you start looking first 5 maybe, and you get Crochet here at plus 110 for the first full game, but you can get Crochet first 5 innings at minus 120, minus 125. So that is another option. Obviously, you're paying a premium, but it's still a very reasonable price. Drew, I'll throw this game to you. I want to get your thoughts on this, because the Dodgers, one of the best teams in baseball, Crochet, one of the best pitchers in baseball, but it's a really interesting situation with Crochet. For those that aren't familiar, he's a reliever turned starter that's become very strong here in the last couple months, but he has already gone over the most pitches pitched in a season by 20 pitches, and we're not even halfway through. A lot of debate also if we trade him or not. Are we sellers with Crochet? At first, that sounded crazy to me, but I really think they should be, because I'm not sure this guy's going to be a long-term starter, and wouldn't be surprised if he hits a wall here in the near future. But what are you doing with Crochet? Are you selling him? And more specifically, what are you doing with this game tonight, Dodgers and White Sox?
Sure, Steve. I mean, in this profile of bet, I actually like going with the better team over just the better starting pitcher. I thought some of your points you just brought up there about Crochet, the first rounder out of Tennessee, with Tennessee playing tonight for the College World Series championship. Heavy favorites, by the way. I think Gigham's the way to look in that one. But talking about here on the South side, Garrett Crochet, I agree with what Trigg said. He's a top-notch guy when he's got it rolling. The only thing with this, if you're looking to bet the White Sox, it comes down to the price. I mean, you brought up first 5. Are you really laying $1.25 with the White Sox? I mean, up against the Dodgers, the number 1 hitting team for the full season, number 1 against lefties as well. And it's not just like they're number 1 by a little bit. You go by team OPS, they're 35 team OPS points over number 2. So they've absolutely smashed lefties. This is a great handicap just in itself. Crochet up against this Dodgers lineup. I'm not so sure that he's going to make it all that deep into the game, Steve. And it's because look at the Dodgers walk rate. They see a lot of pitches, top to bottom of this lineup. Therefore, it makes me almost think man, is he going to get to the 5th and the 6th inning? I don't know. And then it leads into the White Sox bullpen. That's one of, if not the worst bullpens in baseball. So getting the Dodgers under minus 120 right now, if you go by the WagerTalk, tickets and money, Crochet, it's not a secret anymore. There's a lot of people betting on him when he is pitching. And therefore, it's almost like any value on him, in my opinion, is taken out of it, Steve. So I actually think the Dodgers here, guys, 48-31 on the season, where the White Sox 21-58. For every win they get, they lose 3 almost. They're 1-4 their last 5. The Dodgers have been great on the road, 8 games over 500 on the road, 5-2 their last 7. I think a lot is pointing here towards the Dodgers. Oh, by the way, James Paxton, I agree with Trigg. He's not the better pitcher in this matchup, but he is 7-1. Back-to-back starts going 6 or 7 innings, 1 earned run in each. He only gave up 2 hits his last time out. I think he could actually have a good start here up against the White Sox lineup. All of that pointing me towards the Dodgers here, Steve. I think this price is light. It's the Dodgers all the way for me.
Steve, I'll chime in quick.
Sox. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, just listening to Drew talk and having broken that game down, it feels like the total's probably a little light. Paxton's ERA is 3.46. His WHIP is 1.54. Chances are Paxton is going to work his way to an ERA in the 4s at some point. The White Sox get Eloy Jimenez back, who should be a decent matchup against Paxton, so that maybe helps in over there. And then, if you get a little bit of offense out of Crochet or you get him out by like the 5th or the 6th, the Dodgers are certainly going to have run scoring chances. So I guess my lean here would probably be to the over 8. I feel like it's a little light.
Yeah, I was going to say something else might be worth considering is actually the White Sox team total. If you're looking at the under in this game, on the under 8 instead of the over 8, the White Sox team's total is 3.5, and they've been a terrible offensive team all season. So I do think Paxton should be able to hold them in check. But Crochet has not been getting run support. In fact, the last time out, he was on a 6-2. They've gone 6-2 his previous 8 starts. They lost a 4-1 game against Houston last week. They scored, this is recent outings, 1 run, 3 run, 7. But then they only scored 3 and 1. So they've scored 3 runs or less in 4 of his last 5 starts. And that's a trend maybe we see continue against the mighty Dodgers tonight. So something else to keep an eye on. Maybe the White Sox team total under 3.5, which actually takes Crochet completely out of the handicap, which is kind of ironic. All right, closing. Last call. And by the way, we have lots of great comments here. Rangers first 5 is something that Brandon Lowry is looking at in the YouTube live chat. Jay Pacino has the Dodgers the best OPS against lefties, something you were talking about there, Drew. And also he said he is selling Crochet ASAP. Daryl Turner likes Tennessee tonight. As Drew said, they're a big favorite, though. White Sox first 5 from J Cop 66. And Daryl Turner talking a little hockey. Likes Panthers and Oilers under tonight. And Ralph Michaels had pointed out, I think it's been like several decades since a Game 7 has gone over 5 goals in the NHL Stanley Cup. So something to keep in mind. Maybe we'll finally see some defense tonight. And then Roger Long, sticking with the Funky Cole Medina reference, says all the poodles run to my house for the Funky Cole Medina. Roger, we definitely have your over-under age at 50 or higher now, since you know the lyrics to a Tone Loc song from the late 80s, which I also know. And I'm right at it. Might be a push. I am 50. Guys, let's get to some best bets here. I will go back to you, Drew Martin, to start us off right with a best bet for tonight. And you're going to look at maybe my Washington Nationals against, I don't know who's San Diego Padres. They're kind of like the Nationals light. They gave away half their roster a few years ago to San Diego. But anyway, the Nationals still in the playoff race. That's why they might be my Washington Nationals once again. San Diego also in the playoff race as well. But you're going to look at the total in this one, Drew Martin. Nationals, Padres. And by the way, 5% MLB best bet up tonight for Drew Martin. After a 2-0 sweep yesterday, not a bad time to have a big play tonight, Drew.
Absolutely, Steve. Yeah, max limit going tonight. Nationals, San Diego Padres. In Petco, we get Pat Corbin and Matt Waldron, the knuckleballer, going for the Friars. 7 innings, 1 earned the last time he pitched. And this guy's been great. He's at the knuckleball dancing, Steve. 2 earned runs or less in 7 straight starts. We get the Washington Nationals coming from Colorado to near sea level here. I like fading teams leaving Colorado. Pat Corbin, yes, a 5.6 ERA on the season, but back-to-back 5+ inning starts, just 1 earned run in each, 3 hits last time out. Add on the fact the Padres lineup struggles against lefties. We had an 8.5 when I sent the play over, and that's all the hooks on the 8 have been taken out. But we do still have the 8 available out there, guys. I think the Nationals offense struggles against the knuckleballer, and I think Patrick Corbin rides this little hot streak he's been having up against a Friars offense that struggles against lefties. They're the number 2 hitting lineup against righties. They're near bottom 10 against lefties. So we're gonna use that lefty-righty dynamic against them here. I like the under in the Nationals and Padres and a little late-night degenerate special on the West Coast.
Nothing degenerate about it when it cashes Drew Martin, and he is looking at the total in that game. I've actually got a free play on the side in that game, a run line free play between the Nationals and the Padres. So be sure to check out the daily free plays, not only on my page, but everybody's page at WagerTalk.com. But once again, I do have a bonus free play in this game on the side with analysis. Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. And while you're there, you can check out a strong totals play for myself. I've got an easy over slugfest tonight for my clients. We've been seeing it well on over a 70% baseball run for the past several weeks. And just a little bit of a look ahead to tomorrow. I'll be on the baseball show tomorrow. I'll talk more about this, but very well might have my first 5% MLB play of the season going tomorrow night on Tuesday. There's a matchup I really like. Drew Martin's got a strong 5%er tonight, and I very well might have one tomorrow on Tuesday. So check out our page on a daily basis at wagertalk.com. And Adam Trigger, let's throw it over to you. You're going to look at a late night game as well at 9:45 Eastern in the National League. Cubs and Giants. Chicago, a slight road favorite at San Francisco. Steele and Miller on the mound. Battle of two southpaws, I believe. What are you doing with this one tonight?
Steve, I'm not sure yet. I want to be on the Cubs. I, want to see exactly what the Giants are going to do with their starting pitching. I played the Cubs. It was a rare loss for me in MLB. I also have a 5% play going tonight. I did lose with the Cubs yesterday, but I'm still 13-3 on my last 16 Major League Baseball plays. So I think I'm 6-1 on my last 7 Korean baseball plays. So really hot across the board right now. Fortunately, WNBA winner on the Sky yesterday to offset that, and I got out with a split. But it's going really well, and I have a 5% play in Major League Baseball that goes tonight at Wager Talk. Another one I'm considering, I'm using it as a best bet for the show, but also stay tuned because I may add this, is the Cubs. This already is moving a little bit. Cubs were more like minus 105 earlier, now up to minus 115, minus 120. I think because Spencer Howard probably ends up being the bulk guy or the starter for the Giants, which I'll get to in a minute. But man, there's a lot of reasons to want to bet against this Giants team. So in addition to me being high on the Cubs, which, I don't think I've been correct about that to this point, but there's a lot of reasons I think we can all agree, and I'll go through them, of why what there's not to like about the Giants right now. They've lost 5 straight games. In that stretch, they've been outscored 31-19. The Cubs completely dominated them last week, by the way. People are going to look quick and say, oh, the Cubs took 2 of 3. But the Giants pulled off a crazy comeback in the first game of that series. The Cubs should have swept them, in my opinion. And the game that Spencer Howard did get involved in, which I believe was the third one, the Cubs were in control. And I think they gave up 4 runs in the 8th inning to make that game look closer than it should have been. The Giants are in dire straits when it comes to starting pitching right now. Jordan Hicks and Logan Weber, the only 2 healthy starters on the roster. You've got Kyle Harrison out with an ankle injury. Blake Snell pitched in rehab yesterday, was terrible. He'll probably be down in AAA a little bit longer. He's coming back from his 3rd different injury of the season. It's a groin injury this time. Robbie Ray pitched yesterday. You might see him soon. But it goes down the line. Mason Black was up for a little while. He's been getting pumped in AAA. They're not going to go back to him, anytime soon. Dalton Jeffries was up earlier. He's on the Pirates now, so he's not even with the organization anymore. Keaton Wynn's still hurt, and then you've had guys like Alex Cobb and Tristan Beck hurt all year. Have no clue when Cobb is supposed to be back. He's coming off hip surgery, but Beck you might see soon. The point is, right now, it's rough for the Giants in pitching. Their bullpen is the most used bullpen in the league at this point. And it looks like we're going to continue the Spencer Howard experiment. Sounds like a band that Tokyo Brandon would listen to, but it's not. It's Spencer Howard starting or coming in bulk innings for the Giants, which can't work. Steve, somehow this worked for 3 games earlier the year. It can't possibly work. Spencer Howard, just not a big league caliber starter, and we're finally starting to see that a little bit. Now, his last 4 outings, 10 runs in just 12.2 innings. The Cubs got to him. They used him in relief against the Cubs last week, and I think the Cubs tagged him for 3 or 4 runs in an inning. So it's just, that's what they're probably going to get most of tonight. And you're talking about throwing that up against Justin Steele, who somehow doesn't have a win yet this year. This is a guy with a 3.16 ERA, a 1.07 whip. He's made 10 starts and he doesn't have a win. Tell me how that's possible. That's how random wins and losses are, I guess, for pitchers in big league baseball. 3 starts against the Giants since the beginning of 2022. He's got a 0.98 ERA. I cashed playing the Cubs last week with Steele against the Giants in a game that he was excellent in. He just didn't get a win. And then I'll leave it with a stat that I would expect Drew Martin to find, because he's always digging up these great little stats. The Giants can't get anyone out on the base pass, and they also don't steal bases themselves. They have a minus 61 stolen base differential this year. To put in context how bad it is, the next worst team is the Blue Jays, minus 28. Find me another stat where there's a team that worse than every other team in Major League Baseball. That means they don't steal bases and guys run on them at a rapid rate. And Bob Melvin's even talked about, his pitcher's not holding runners on. So it's a big issue. The Giants are not a team I'm trying to back anytime soon. And depending on what the Giants do with their pitching tonight, I might jump in with the Cubs. But, even if I don't, you still probably can. I'd be shocked if the Cubs don't figure it out in this series. And minus 115 with Steele seems pretty good. So Cubs is going to be my best bet for the show.
Yeah, quick rematch from just 6 days ago. Last Tuesday, these two guys, of course, started against each other. And as you mentioned, Miller doesn't last long. In fact, Miller's gone into the second inning only once in his last 6 starts. That's pretty crazy how baseball has changed with these relievers starting both games and whatnot.
So Steve, that'll probably, if Miller's listed, he's just going to go for an inning, and it's probably going to be Howard after him. That's kind of what I was waiting for to be announced.
Yeah, I mean, the WagerTalk live odds screen, we're seeing Miller, but that obviously can change. And speaking of undecided, we didn't get to that Blue Jay Red Sox game because I was hoping maybe we'd see a pitcher there, but we do have some people asking here in the live chat about that game as well. So on the way out, I'll start with you, Drew. Any thoughts on this Red Sox Blue Jay game? I mean, for me, when I see undecided pitcher, he's my least favorite starter to handicap.
Yeah, exactly. No, not much on that with the undecided. But I will add something to what Trigg said in terms of the Giants, which I thought were great points. The Cubs on the other side, I was doing some research on taking the extra base. The NL Central is stealing at like a ridiculous number. I mean, the Reds, the Cubs are another team. Going into the weekend, I haven't updated the numbers, but they were only caught stealing 12 times all season long. So in terms of like stretching singles into doubles by taking bases, the Cubs are one of the best teams in baseball. They have just not been thrown out all that many times. So I think at some point it really starts to be a benefit for the Cubs. So that might be another reason for tonight to fade the Giants and be on the Cubbies.
Yeah, and Jay Pacino is saying the Cubs are going to turn it around. It's only a matter of time. So I think some people in the chat are agreeing that the Cubs are maybe a play-on team. And we got some people asking. Yeah, go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, one more thing. I'll talk about Jays quick, but one more thing about the Cubs. On April 30th, this was jammed in my face on the Sunday night broadcast last night as I'm sitting there with a Cubs ticket. On April 30th, they were number 1 in Major League Baseball with OPS with runners in scoring position. Since May 1st, they're dead last, and they're dead last by a wide margin. So some of this Cubs sort of futility you've seen over the last 6 weeks or so might be a little bit random, right? I still think that there's an element of randomness to hitting with runners in scoring position, and the Cubs have been so bad, with doing so the last 6 weeks, that you've got to think if they're going to get base runners on, and Drew just talked about them being able to steal, which implies that they're probably going to be able to get a few runners in scoring position against the Giants. How long can a team that was first in that category on April 30th continue to be dead last? I think we're going to see that start to come back to the middle a little bit. And I think the Cubs are like a timely hit or two. They were only a timely hit or two away last night, really. I think a timely hit or two away from starting to string some wins together.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think reversion to the mean makes a lot of sense. We go from 1st to 30th, you probably should be 15th, right? So that might be the epitome of reversion to the mean here, and we'll see if that starts kicking in. Yeah, on the way out, Adam, any thoughts on this Jays Red Sox? G. Hurt was asking. He said he's seeing Bassett listed at some places. I'm seeing that as well, even though he's official. It's undecided. It might be Bassett for the Blue Jays tonight against the Red Sox.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough spot to really back either team, in my opinion. The Blue Jays have so many issues right now. I will say this about Bassett. He's got very good numbers against the Red Sox. So that certainly lends itself to, like, if he is the guy, I could see, you making a case for the Blue Jays based on Bassett having very good numbers against the Sox. But Tanner Houck, 2.14 ERA, has been second in the league right now. And he's been very good. The problem with the Red Sox is they cooked their bullpen pretty good yesterday. I believe they used 8 different relievers. So couldn't really find, much to justify a play on either of these teams. Does feel like the Jays are going to get one sooner or later. So you could play the do theory with the Jays there, I suppose. But I typically don't love doing that unless I have something to back it up. Blue Jays on the run lines, plus minus 150 at Fenway, or I'm sorry, minus 150 for the plus 1.5. Steve, I love my plus 1.5s with the road teams, but I would have preferred a little bit less juice there to take the run with the Blue Jays. So I don't know. I don't really have much else to add there. Those are my thoughts on the game, and I quickly left that one off as well.
Yeah, Daryl Turner likes the Red Sox in that game in the live chat. He also likes the Nationals. He likes Dan Alexander's Philadelphia Phillies, and Dan will be back tomorrow on Tuesday, along with myself, Steve Merrill, and Brian Leonard at 2 o'clock Eastern here, breaking these games down. So get your live chat questions ready. If you're watching this on the replay here, we do monitor the comments after the show. Be sure to leave comments afterwards on the replay. We are answering any questions you have. And once again, Adam Trigger, myself, Steve Merrill, Drew Martin, best bets available at WagerTalk.com. Drew and Adam both have strong 5% best bets going tonight, and I very well might have my first 5%er going tomorrow on Tuesday. If everything clicks right, if the price is right, as Bob Barker would say, we might be pulling the trigger with our strongest play this season in baseball. So be sure to check back tomorrow on Tuesday for the baseball show here for more information. On the way out, Drew, Daryl Turner also likes Tennessee tonight. I know you mentioned earlier it was a big line. Quick thoughts on this college basketball championship game at 7 Eastern. Should be one of the bigger bet games tonight in baseball.
College baseball World Series, Steve. To tell you the truth, I haven't been handicapping it too much. I just see near a plus $2 underdog. Giga Maggies. I mean, the recruiting classes over the last couple years on the football gridiron, I feel like it needs to correlate in some way to the baseball field. And it's the last game of the season. So people talking about, they went through their bullpen, this and that. I mean, for college kids, last game, I think it's all hands on deck. Get out there and throw the baseball a little bit. So, hey, if you needed something, I would be on the plus price with the Giga Maggies, Texas A&M there. And on the ice, guys, I love the Panthers, lifelong Panthers fan, but I just think momentum's too strong here. So I would be on Edmonton for what it's worth. And not to mention, goes without saying, I have not beaten the betting markets in NHL or college baseball. So do what you want with that information, but it should be a fun night of sports betting.
I don't follow either one of them or do well, but these are my thoughts on these two games. I'm so glad I asked you, Drew. That was about as pointed. Now, I will say, I don't, in your defense, I'm about to say the same thing. I don't follow the NHL anymore. But Ralph had that stat about like no game going over 5 goals in the NHL game 7 of Stanley Cup in like 50 years or something, whatever it is. And then we look at the juice tonight. It's now 5.5 under 50. I think the betting markets are telling us all we need to know right there. And I know as an NBA capper, and I do very well in the NBA, number one all time, including this season at WagerTalk. We all know game 6s and especially 7 stay under more times than not in the NBA championships and the NBA playoffs in general. So if I had to play that hockey game tonight, it would be under or pass for me, under that 5.5 between the Oilers and Florida Panthers. And I so much forgot it was Drew Martin's Miami Panthers and Joe Ranieri's Miami Panthers. Florida is so generic. It's like half the country. So it's got to be more specific.
The Sunrise Panthers.
But yeah, I always find it interesting, guys, that you have another team in the state, Tampa Bay, yet they call them the Florida Panthers. And the Angels for many years were the California Angels, even though they're like 4 other teams in the state. I always thought that was a little bit strange, but it is what it is. And the Canadians eventually get it right. And that'll actually offend about
Drew, how far from Miami is that arena? Like an hour? It's pretty far from Miami, isn't it? It's
5 o'clock on a weekday to get to this game. I'll take the over on 2 hours from downtown Miami. Yeah, it's a pretty good distance.
And that's why the arena was empty till they started winning. And the Miami Marlins, I've driven by that arena when I got lost. It's in the middle of nowhere. I mean, the Miami Marlins get, 10 people a game, Drew, when you're not there. They get 12 when you show up with a friend. So we know where that stadium is as well. It's kind of middle of nowhere there. Anyway, that'll do the show today. We'll be back tomorrow. Dan, the man Alexander, will have everything on point, along with me, myself, Steve Merrill, and Brian Leonard. I'll also be on Wager Talk today, tomorrow, on Tuesday, and I'll have more information if we are going with the first 5% baseball best bet this season. So stay tuned. In the meantime, click subscribe. It's free. Don't cost nothing. Hit that thumbs up. Boom. You did it. Comment below on the replay. We read all the comments and reply back. Click subscribe and hit the bell as well, especially since we're moving to an earlier start time, 11 a.m. Eastern here in the near future. You'll never miss a live show or a free play video here. Thanks for watching. Best of luck. Enjoy the games. We'll talk to you again soon here on WagerTalk TV.